Okay, before I go into the video, I want to give just a basic understanding of glow plugs and what's going on. These here are your glow plugs. This is one that's out of a 6.0. This one's out of a 7.3. And once you get the older 7.3 or the 6.9 IDIs, they're smaller. They may have a spade type on here, but none of that's too important. I just want to show the different types that we have. Now, a little bit of understanding. This is just a heating element. Glow plugs only used to start the vehicle. Once the engine's running, pretty much they're shut off and they're not used. Just as a starting assist, this tip will heat up, which I'll show here in a second. This is grounded through the body, so this will always be grounded, well, through the engine block and back to the battery, so this will always be ground. Your power is going to come here, and once this is energized or turned on, that's when the tip starts to glow, which I'll show here in a second. We've got a couple ways of testing these. One is with the volt ohm meter. We can sit here and look at ohms. Ford would tell you pretty much, I've seen it say 10 ohms, I've seen it say 5 ohms. Most of the time I usually find right about an ohm, pretty much 0.7 to 1.3 is what I find on average. If you want to test them out of the vehicle, you can just take it and put your ground, or whichever one, put one on the body, one on the tip, let it settle down here. You can see this one right here, 1.3. Check another one, this one's brand new. That one was used. Check this new one here. And this is also one of the diesel RX ones. And that's about 1 ohm of resistance. So that tells you, you can check it that way, you can know what it is. Also, another way people would test them, when they're in their vehicle, it'll be grounded here by being in the block. People would take their test light, put their test light, the end of the test light on power, and they just go and touch the tip like this. And then if it lights up, then we know we have resistance because of the heating element. Again, with this being, with the end of your test light being on power, this gives it the ground, so we're using it kind of reverse the way a test light normally is. But that tells us that the heating element inside there is most likely good. So you see people do that, pull the wires off and just touch a test light on all 8 of them and see if it's working. So that's a couple ways you can test it with the volt ohm meter and see what's going on. Also here, what I want to cover while I have this out, Reman Auto Electronics, RAE, they can do a couple things for you. They'll sell you these parts, the glow plugs, the diesel RX ones, or the solenoid here if you need them. They have that. They'll also rebuild your solid state ones. You'll find these pretty much on the early ones up till 2000. Then after 2000, 2001, so they can actually monitor each cylinder, each glow plug as far as amp draw and tell you which one's missing because of emissions. They went to the solid state, which I'll cover towards the end of the video. At first I start off with a 7.3, 6.9 IDI, and then I'll go on down to these solid state ones and show a little bit about coverage and what I find with them. And again, just to explain here how it works, same thing, I have this glow plug to simulate it being grounded in the block. You turn the key on and you get power to it, and what we end up here is you get your glow plug. It'll just heat up like this. You can see it there getting glowing red, and that's how you get your combustion. Again, this is just a starting aid. It'll come on like that to help you. It'll be on maybe up to 2 minutes depending on how cold it is. That's also going to vary. And this just helps to ignite the fuel, because diesel is not ignited by spark like a gasoline motor is. Diesel's ignited by the compression, by the heat, and when they're cold they don't want to start, so that's why you have this to come on and do it. So let me go ahead and start the video now, showing different ones. Again, I start with the 6.9 and I go on up to the 6.0, which is the same theory on the 6.4, even on the 6.7. So hopefully this helps. I've been wanting to show the different years and different styles of the glow plugs, try to cover it all with one video. It's rare for me to get a 80s vehicle to come in or come around out here. So this one's not exactly perfect because it has the ATS turbo modification on it, but it's one of the IDI ones and I can cover it still, just the location of the glow plug controller is different. So here, this is your glow plug controller, and it's normally mounted up down the intake. It's basically the same theory principle as the 7.3 power stroke, to where we have what looks like a starter solenoid, and it's doing the same thing. We've got the large power supply coming in here, and then once we energize it, once the engine sees the water temperature at the right area, it'll go ahead and energize it and come through here, and from here to just go back and feed the glow plugs through here. So it's pretty much all you want to do is turn the key on. Also with these, if you have more than 3 glow plugs out, when you turn the key on, you hear click, 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 click. It's because it won't stay latched. So if you're hearing that, you probably have 3 or more glow plugs out. But to test the system, basically all I really have is just my test light here on the ground. Check over here on the positive, so it's good. And then here I'll touch it on this side, because this is the output. Turn the key on, and hopefully it's going to come on. And it will also vary on these, maybe not so much as the newer stuff that can be pretty much off, but they still will vary. So we'll turn the key on and make sure that this one's operating properly. Here I'm working on a older 7.3 non-California emissions. So I've got it to put my test light, check it out, make sure to verify it's working. Got it on ground because I want to check for current. Now remember that your power is supplied to the glow plug module. It's tied in over here. These 2 gray ones are actually fusible links, and that's where it'll tie into the brown wire over here, which I'll show in a second. So anyhow, we have test light working. As you can see there, it's working. First thing is, it'll go over here to the glow plug. Now I have power there, so that verifies I do have current to it. The next one is I have the key on, checking it out right now, and it's going to, again, the glow plug on time is going to vary depending on oil temp and air temp. So I have power here, and I'm pretty sure, and I have power over here. Now the reason that is because when it wants, it ran out while I was filming here. Normally you have power here, well, just make sure you have power on one side, ground on the other, because when the PCM sees that the conditions are right, where your oil's under 80 degrees, air temperature's under 50, it could be different. That's just the common one that I usually go by. But when your oil temp and your air temp is right, it's going to turn it on, and it does that by grounding it here, and you see your power go through. So again, you have your power here from the battery, the larger one, the brown one here with the orange stripe, and usually your yellow and brown are your out to your left and right side, and you have power all the time. PCM is going to ground it, and then we should see it out here, which it's not. I'm going to cycle the key again and then check it and show you the difference here. So remember, right now, power, 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 nothing. But we don't expect anything because we don't have ground here. Let me cycle the key. But now see, we have power, we have ground because it's trying to control it. So this is what you would expect to find if the glow plug's working as far as getting power to them. You would have the power in, power out. So now this one's wanting to work. Maybe since it's acting up, I'm going to go ahead and try to start it and see if it wants to start here after time's out. We'll wait a second, hear it click. It can vary up to a couple minutes depending on how cold it is and depending on the calibration. Okay, there we just heard it click and it went off, so now I'm going to try to start the vehicle. On the earlier 7.3 direct injection, you'll have here what looks kind of like a starter solenoid. That's actually your glow plug control. And glow plug on time is going to vary depending on the air temperature and the oil temperature. So you have your oil temperature sensor here, which senses the oil temp. It uses that as an input to the PCM, the main computer. And also over here on the air filter box on the back side, you'll have an air temperature. And depending on, as long as your oil temperature is under 80 and the outside air is under 50, you'll have a longer glow plug on time. If it's the oil's warmed up or it's warm outside, it's going to be considerably less with the newer strategies. Now to test these solenoids, well, actually let me back up here. This is your main power wire to it right here. And the main power wire, the goal is to have it go through and come over here and energize the glow plugs. This is to the glow plugs. Now this is an earlier one, non-California, so it just has one going out. This blue wire is the monitor to make sure, so the computer can do its checks and balances, make sure that the glow plugs are coming on. So anyhow, we should have constant power here at the main one in. You do have fusible links, so if this thing was to totally ground out, they're burnt out over here, and these are your fusible links right here. Just tug on them, and if they don't stretch, they're okay. if they're stretched and the broken side and these fusible links have went bad. So that's your main power over to the glow plugs, to the relay. And then when you turn the key on, if the PCM sees that it's needed, it's going to go ahead and ground your solenoid here, which energizes. This kind of looks like a washer comes up. It'll energize inside here and send the power through to your glow plugs. And then the larger one, the one that's taller and larger over here, that's if you have the option of the air intake heater, which is here, so which also heat the air going into it. If you got the cold weather package, you'll have that, and you'll also have the brake that's on the exhaust. Not the brake. People convert the brakes. That's why I said that. You have the exhaust control to where it shuts it off to aid in warm up. That's with the cold weather package, and then you also usually have the block heater, or they put the extension cord on it so you can plug it in. So I'll go ahead and show a little bit of testing on this one so you know what to try to make it make a little bit more sense. Okay, I just have my test light over here on ground just to confirm the test light's working. I'll touch over here to positive. That way I know that it's working and I can start checking it. So just your basic test, you just want to make sure that you have power getting here. So we check it and it does have power. So that's good. Now we want to start checking the control. And again, it's a pretty simple circuit. We just have power on one side, ground on the other. Now, when you turn the key on, it'll actually default to have power on both sides until the PCM tells it to ground it, and that's what energizes it and brings it up. So now what we want to do is turn the key on, again, as long as it's cold, oil and air temperature, and see if we get power coming all the way through over here to energize the glow plugs. So we'll go ahead and check that. Here I have one with the code P0672. The main thing we want to focus on is the last digit. The P is powertrain, and then there are always 4 digits for any of the newer stuff after 96. Anything with a 6-7 is just glow plug related, and then the last one being 2, that's for glow plug number 2. So if we had a P0673, that's for glow plug circuit number 3, and so on all the way up to 8. So we'll always see 672 through 678. Now on this one, what I want to show is testing the circuits, ohming it out, and trying to determine if it's a glow plug or the module itself. If you have test parts, of course, that always makes it easier. But then also with test parts, one thing I want to tell you is it takes at least 3 key cycles before it sets the glow plug code. So if you just clear the codes by disconnecting the batteries or hitting reset or clear, and you plug a glow plug module in, turn the key on and start it, and it's not there, that doesn't mean you fixed it unless you've done it at least 3 times. At least 3 times. I don't know every calibration, but most of them I'm pretty sure are 3 key cycles to see a fault. So on this one right here, we're going to check the circuit for glow plug number 2 and check it out. Since it's given as a code specific to a cylinder, it must have California emissions and the solid state controller. On these, on the 6.0, I removed the charge air cooler, the hot side tube right here, and gain access to it so we can start checking for the ohms, the resistance on it, and see what's going on. Once you pull the connections off, you want to look close at it to see how well the pins are fitting. So here we look at this, we look down inside of here, this one all looks pretty good. But when we look inside the black one here, so you pay attention, especially to right here. When there's spread like that, you're going to have high resistance and give you a problem. So on this one I'm going to actually clean those up, try to bend them back together and retest it. Because right now it is a hard fault on a P0672. Okay, I'm going to check the circuit here for resistance. And I'm out here in the desert southwest, so I might not be the best person on the glow plugs. I mean, we don't use them that often because most of these don't come on unless we're down in the 50s or less. But still, we do see them all the time because of California emissions. so I lose on one, gain on the other. But to get back to what checking the circuits, almost always just start right here at the module, because that's also where you're going to find the problem. I see just as many when I have codes. I would say it's just probably about even to where I'm getting 30% on all of them. It could be the module, it could be the glow plug, or it can be the connections in here. Almost never is it down here at the 4-pin connection unless somebody's worked on it. So of course make sure it's seated, but if not, we're going to go ahead and go start off here. A couple other pointers I can give you is usually on these I like to try to remember which one's odd, which one's even. So we're going to go ahead and pull them apart, and remember this truck right here had the 672 code, so I'm going to go after the black one. I'm going to show you both so we can look at the circuits and check it, but I'm going to unplug it, and as soon as I do, we want to look at the connection itself for melting or any of the separation, port connection. So let's go ahead and unplug it and check it and start looking for the resistance here. To test the circuits and the glow plugs, it's kind of a crude way, but you can use a test light. The better way is to actually ohm out and check each resistance and see how each one comes up with. That's more accurate, but most people don't have a volt ohm meter, they have a test light. So what I'll do is I'll just show you both ways real quick here, but I want to cover a few things before I do that. One of the ways I remember is green is money, and also green is odd. So if I ever had any money, that would be odd. So this is how I remember my odd side. So, and also what I have here, this is the green connection on it. We have 1, 3, 5, and 7. I know it doesn't make sense. You would think it would use the outer ones, but it doesn't. You have 1, 3, 5, and 7. And also to keep from damaging it, this one here is already damaged. You can see here that the contacts are spread. That can also cause your glow plug code number 1, a P0671, because being spread. So always make sure you look at this. If you find a connection like this with this spread, that could easily be your problem. But again, to check the circuitry here, instead of just going and jamming my test light or my volt ohm meter in here, just take this. You can remove these pretty easily. Just take them, pop them off, and they go right back on easily too. And now you can also see how it's spread, but it's a lot easier. Now we can just sit there and go and check our test light and make sure it lights up. We'll go here on 1, 3, 5, and 7. And we can also check the integrity of the wires and see what's going on. And we can see here that these two need attention. So this truck probably had an issue with 1 and 3 on there. And the same way here on the other side, this is our even side, but then we have a 2, 4, 6, and 8. The same theory, same principle. Everything else is the same. And also a lot of times whenever you're trying to diagnose anything electrical, just remember, just like water, if you want more water, more volume, you have a bigger hose. Same way whenever you're doing anything, you have more current, you're going to have a larger wire. If you look here on the back of these, you can see here that the main power one's pretty large. Then the other 4, or the 2 on this side, the 2 on this side are larger diameter than the other one here, which is sending the signal back. Same way here. We've got the large one down the center. Then we have a little bit larger diameter here that's sending for the glow plugs on both, and you can color coordinate them and check them that way too. So anyhow, here we have again covering the green is odd, so this is it, and the 1, 3, 5, 7, and then 2, 4, 6, 8 on the black one. So I'm going to go ahead and actually show you on a truck, on a live truck, what it should do, because you want to get a couple ohms resistance on each one. That's what you normally find when you have good glow plugs, and this checks the integrity pretty much from your module down to the glow plug. If you have it open or you have high resistance, you probably have a bad glow plug or a poor connection somewhere. It's usually always either a glow plug or the module. So let's go ahead and check the circuitry on a live truck. Okay, I had a test light, one side of it, the clamp part's hooked up to my positive. That way when I touch the ground, my test light lights up. So every time it grounds out, we're checking it that way. So here we go down at the connection that's already exposed, and we'll check each side here. We'll check the 1, 3, 5, 7. So there we have it with a test light doing it. And again, we're not damaging any pins here, any connections, spreading them apart, doing it this way. So let's actually now try it with the volt ohm meter. Okay, now I'm using my volt ohm meter. What I've done, I just took the ground, stuck it here on the alternator. And you can see as right now I'm out of limits. So when I touch it to the alternator, I just touched it to the alternator here, making continuity. You can see here we got roughly half an ohm of resistance. So leaving my ground there on the alternator, I'm going to do the same thing here as far as just touching on each one, just so you get the idea. There we go, we have about an ohm of resistance on this one. And here we'll just check the one that's next to it because it's easiest. Moved it to that one. We'll let the meter have about the same thing, an ohm of resistance where it wants to settle. And we can do that on and on. I don't want to bore you with it, but that's pretty much checks the wiring integrity from the module down to it. We checked both the ohms, or we use a test light, whether volt ohm meter or the test light. A couple things just to cover, or just to cover over and over, is just remember when you have a glow plug, if it's California emissions, it'll turn on a light. When you have glow plug codes, federals will not turn on the light, at least what I've found so far. Also, when you have a glow plug issue, it takes 3 key cycles to set a code. So if you just go and you think you fixed it, clear the codes, drive around the block, you think you're good, it's going to have another couple starts. So by the time the customer gets it is when the light will come back on. So remember, make sure you do 3 key cycles before you call it good.